Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Melissa Opie, and I am here with my amazing friend, Laura Westman. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
So my first question for you actually is going to be, what are you most proud of?
I think, so I just celebrated 3 years with my boyfriend 2 weekends ago. Thanks. And while I can hear all of the people in my life who've been married for 20 years that are like, oh, 3 years, whatever. 3 years is way beyond where I normally stop, And I feel like the level of, communication and intimacy that we have is pretty special. And that's totally new for me. And I'm very proud of myself and very proud of us.
I guess since you said it was 3 years, but you've been coaching for 4 years, so you were a coach before you met. So that's something. How do you feel like the coaching has helped or hindered? In your perspective, do you have anything you can say about that?
Oh, absolutely. So maybe I can start with how it hindered because it's kind of funnier. It's funny now that it's not in the way anymore, and I can look at myself and be like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
When it's actually funny we're talking about this today because I was doing some work on this for myself this morning, and when I signed up to become a coach, my ego had a lot to say about it. A lot. I was very proud of myself and I needed everyone to know. Yeah. And I really wanted to be successful immediately so I could prove everybody wrong who thought I was too young to do this. Yeah, my ego had a lot going on. And I did pretty well from that, even from that place. Like it went pretty well. But when I was first starting out, like I said, I had this like wall of fear and defensiveness, which was kind of predictable for me. Like whether I'd become a coach or decided to become a social worker or had actually gone into politics, which was my intention, there would have been that wall, like it would have been there no matter what. And I was a mess when it came to my personal relationships. I had no ability to directly communicate anything. I really didn't have a strong muscle in how to take responsibility for the messes that I would make. It was a lot of like, well, it has to be other people's fault because I've never done this before. It's like when I say it out loud, it's like totally flawed logic, but at the time, that's kind of how it went.
So as far as like being a coach, so there's the whole thing where you're still Laura, you're still like a human being and you're still gonna, make mistakes. When it comes to like friends and family who know you as a coach, do you feel like there's any different way that they might look at you? Do you act differently around them? Tell me a little bit more about all of that.
First thing I have is like, it sort of feels like there's two pieces of it. One is you have to practice not being a coach. Like you can be coach in the world and like stand for people's possibility and be positive and, practice all the stuff you preach if you want to. And you can't coach everybody, So once I was kind of through that phase of like really needing people to like know that I'm a coach, it was like, oh, I'm not coach here. I'm actually like myself, I'm with my family. I can like turn it off or whatever versus feeling like you always have to be on or something. But I think the other part of it is like, I'm 28 and I'm at that kind of funny point where my extended family are learning how to interact with me as an adult. And I'm learning how as an adult to interact with my extended family. And there's no like right way to do it. Sometimes I think because I have practice with like getting altitude over my emotions, I should be able to like perfectly handle everything that comes my way, and I have no idea.
When you're actually like stepping into a client session, do you like immediately turn it off as you leave and go about your normal day-to-day life?
I think I've been doing a lot of work on like integrating different parts of myself in different areas of my life. So if we were having this conversation a year ago, I would probably be like, yes. And it causes me a lot of stress to try to switch and change and navigate. But I think it's less about, for me now, it's like, I think I'm consistently me, which is cool. It's taken time to find that like balance as a coach, being able to find your voice. But I think the thing that changes is how I relate to the person I'm being with, you know. With a client, it's all about the client, you know. I listen very deeply. I reflect everything. It's all what's going to be in service of them for that hour. Like, they are my world, and my needs don't play into that, you know. So I'm just there to be that reflective surface and kind of hold them there. And, you know, depending on different relationships, like that might be different. Like, there are times when my boyfriend needs to be heard, and I just let it be all about him because he's got that need, you know. I'm happy I can fill it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that, I don't really think it's different. It's more like, which strength do I need to use now?
If my life isn't perfect, why would anyone listen to me? I feel like that's like one of those questions that a lot of people might have as far as like, should I be a coach? So I want you to touch on that.
I talk to a lot of people about becoming trained as coaches, so I get that one a lot. And first of all, it's hilarious that never crossed my mind. Never once was I like, oh, my life isn't perfect. You know, I was always like, I'm ready to go. You know, I've got something to contribute. But one of the things is, especially as I get further and further into my development as a coach and as an ontological leader, like, we're actually looking at how we be, you know, how to actually source our being and thrive. So there's no end place. Like, there's no place to get to, you know. There's ways to expand ourselves. There's things that we want to accomplish. But I have it that even the most experienced master certified coaches, MCCs out there, are working on themselves, not because they have to or there's something wrong with them, but because they actually want to feel free and connected with themselves. There's always going to be room to grow. That's why I sometimes people who are interested in starting a coaching business, I talk to them, and sometimes they're like, well, I don't need transformation or coaching myself. And I'm like, you think you're fully cooked? Man, that's going to be lonely and isolating for you for a very long time. All the love in the world, and it's tough. So I feel like everyone's always in process. But the cool thing you can do, you know, if you kind of flip that idea on its head, like, oh, like, I'm not perfect yet, so how can I help other people or coach other people or something, is like, we're all in process. We all are in process. And you can either have an empowering relationship to that or a disempowering one, right? It's disempowering to be like, all my stuff's not lined up and people are going to notice and no one will take me seriously. It's empowering to say, hey, I'm actually committed to this, this, and this, and I'm working on it. And it's not always going great, but it's empowered, you know? So therefore, I actually get to stand for other people to take it on in their own way. And to me, that's a totally different conversation from the same exact experience.
Okay. Do I need to get coaching before I become a coach?
Personal preference. I say it's not needed. I had no clue what coaching even was really when I signed up for it. I knew it was different from therapy and social work and consulting. You know, the thing I got addicted to was so much of coaching is helping your clients see themselves in a better light over and over and over, so they actually build that muscle and relate to themselves that way. And I just thought that was so exciting. I'd never been coached, with the exception of the conversation that I had that had me register. And secretly, I think I may have been uncoachable for like a pretty long time. You know, that like control thing I was talking about, the defense, God bless my first coach. Man, she had her work cut out for her. But I don't think it's necessary, because I think you learn so much, you know. I think it's important once you start coaching people to have a coach.
Do I have the personality to be a coach? What if I'm too shy, or what if I'm not as much of a people person, or what if I'm too overbearing, or whatever, you know, people who have that kind of like idea that a coach has to be a certain way. What would you like to say to that?
I love it. I would say there's no right way to be a coach, you know. And the other thing is, there are qualities that sometimes we think are positive, but usually most personality traits, there's a good side, which is why we keep them around, and a bad side, right? Like there's always going to be a positive and negative consequence to any different ways of being. You know, I'm a people person. I'm a chatty Cathy. And when I first started out, I didn't know how to put it on hold to actually have space for another human being, right? So I may have looked shiny and bright and whatever, but like that was a challenge for me. You know, I think introverted people or shy people are actually great because they're used to listening, you know, and they really value that quiet space. I think the other cool part about being a coach is that, like I said, there's no right way to be a coach. It's all about learning about your voice and how do you authentically come through to empower another person. So no matter what you bring to the table, I think it's all trainable, and in time, kind of like a rock tumbler, you throw all the stuff in there and it rattles around and then it comes out shiny the other end. No matter what personality traits you have, if you want to take on getting trained in your coaching, it's like that rock tumbler and it will come out bright and shiny the other end no matter what, you know? So I think it's one of those things where I would tell this person to focus a little more on what gifts they have and what kind of coaching practice they actually want to have, and trust themselves that they'll actually be able to develop what they need to get there, because they will.
If you could go back in time to you at the beginning of the coaching thing and like you now, if there were any piece of advice for yourself, does anything come up for you there?
I would be like, hey, Laura, let this be fun. Calm down. You know, I was really hungry, like I said, to be recognized for coaching. There's a lot my ego wanted out of it. And I also I was hungry at the very beginning to be able to quit my job, you know, and call myself a full-time coach, even if I only had 2 clients. The cool part was I was able to do that pretty quickly. I was charging enough that just a few clients would replace my income at the coffee shop. You know, it was pretty fantastic. It totally blew up all my stuff about like what I was capable of very quickly, you know. But I think the big thing is I would let it be more fun, and I would also want to collaborate with more people, you know, kind of live a little bit more in the creative side of building your coaching practice. Because I was all like messy, stressy, got to look good, got to figure it out. You know, I always have this thing, one of my like, it's almost like they're like glasses I see things through without altitude. That's usually where I go, is I'm supposed to already know how to do everything all the time. And it's kind of ridiculous because coaching was brand new. When you're new at something, you're not good at it yet, you know? But I've always got this thing, like since I was a kid, where I feel like I have to look like I know what I'm doing already, or there's a consequence or something. My adult brain knows there's no consequence, but the like cells in my body like react as if there is. So I think that's the biggest thing, is I would let myself be new at it, mess up more on purpose and play more, you know, like have more fun with it.
I love it. Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
What would be something that would be like the most difficult thing that you had to go through on your coaching journey thus far?
It's funny because my first instinct is like, I don't know I've never had a choice point where I've been like, I should quit this. You know, I'm pretty lucky. I signed up for a program with a super strong community. So I've had plenty of support the whole time. But there was a year when I was a mentor coach, when I was working in our program in Malaysia. So I went back and forth to Malaysia 5 times that year. It was an extraordinary experience. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And knowing what I know now about the kind of stability that I need, both for my practice, for my health, 5 international trips to the other side of the planet, not in the cards. It was a lot. I learned so much that year, you know, like from the tiny details, like, oh, I can pack for an international trip in like 15 minutes. Good job, me. You know, like I've got that good at it, to how to listen and be with people from different parts of the world that don't trust you yet. Like I learned a lot, and it took a really big toll. And at the time I feel like I didn't, it was kind of that same thing I was talking about a minute ago. Like I should already know how to do this. My ego also feels like I have to always look like I know what I'm doing. So when I didn't know how I was going to get there and back, or how I was going to keep my practice going forward with all the travel, or how I was going to have this new relationship amidst all of this, you know, I didn't know how to ask for the kind of support I really needed. It was like I was giving myself a little drop and expecting myself to fly, you know, when it's like, actually, okay, I'm mixing metaphors here, but it's more like what I needed was like a full-on jacuzzi, and what I was getting was like a little bottle of water, you know?
Yeah.
So that was tough. But again, learned a lot. And when it happens on that big of a scale, it's kind of like you unlearn it pretty quickly. Like, oh, wow, look how I created that situation for myself. Like, not gonna do that again. You know,
Yeah.
I think that was the year when I'm not a quitter. I usually just suffer through things, you know, because my ego would have been like, I'm a coach, you know, like I told people I have to stay one, you know. But I think that year was the most challenging for me. So that would have been the time when if I was a quitter, I would have probably like doubted it a lot and quit.
Do you have any like last words? If there's anything that feels unfinished, I can give you the space to do that. If not, I'll just let you go.
Sure. Let me think. Let me see if I have something really wise to say. I think what I have is, if there's one thing that I've learned that I want to impart onto everybody, it's to trust your intuition when it comes to your creative and professional development. Our bodies are so wise, and we spend most of our lives trying to like, control them or not listen to them or fix them or something. But I think each and every one of us, especially people who want to creatively thrive or run their own business or become a coach themselves, they have that sort of like deep need within them, sometimes in their tummies, you know, and it usually speaks to us if we give it room to listen. So my parting words: trust yourself, trust how brilliant you actually are, and find people who are going to let you really run with it. Best advice I could give.
Yes, it's perfect. Yeah, it's so important. I know, like so many of us, it's true. We spend a lot of time trying to think things, but we already know a lot of things. Like if you take all that energy of trying to rationalize what you actually know, like, I mean, you should spend it for other things. Like just
surrender to how smart you are.
Exactly.
Let it wash over you.
Yeah.
That's what I got.